Intuitive intelligence to me is a holistic form of intelligence. It connects our emotional intelligence, our bodily intelligence, and our mental intelligence. I think that at first I thought it was more of the gut feeling, the kind of immediate response our body has when we are presented with new experiences. But I think that gut feeling is much more attached to our core beliefs about ourselves, which I believe can be really harmful, and our past experiences and our past traumas. And when you then connect that immediate gut feeling, that immediate bodily reaction to your mental intelligence, to your emotional awareness, to the intellect that you have, and rationality and logic, I think you can then actually access your intuition. I think that's where mindfulness exercises come in, why mindfulness is so important, to actually discern, is this gut feeling coming from just my past trauma? Or is this something that I actually really feel for? Is this a fair reaction of my body to have for this moment in time, rather than all of the things that have happened to me in my past that are now being connected to this current experience? So when you put rationality and logic with emotional and bodily awareness, that is when I think we have found intuitive intelligence. My definition of intuitive intelligence really fits with Anouk Brack's definition of intuitive intelligence, especially the rationality versus the non-rational part of our intelligence. And this refers me back to the intuitive blind spot from Andrea Hess. In this reading, she states that we are programmed by our experiences in the past to believe certain things, and this is what I was referring to when I was talking about my gut feeling and the core beliefs that we have about ourselves that really shape how we perceive the experiences that we are currently living. And that is when I believe that these mindfulness exercises and this kind of technique that we learned to access our logical and rational sides of the brain while connecting them to this gut feeling and to the bodily experiences that we're having throughout these experiences, this is what leads us to our intuition. And this mindfulness exercise is what opens up our minds to this intuitive blind spot, these certain beliefs that we have about ourselves that are making us unable to access our intuition in a way that we can actually see it as intuition and not just gut feeling. The mindfulness exercise I chose to do is called autogenesis. It is a 6-minute guided meditation that my therapist, who's a body and emotional awareness coach, gave to me in a very stressful period of my life. And she told me that the intention is to really regulate your nervous system, to kind of find the middle ground between your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system. And I chose to do this exercise before sleep, right before sleep, and just in my bed and having her voice in my head. And it really just focuses on the body. How does your body feel? Going from kind of taking a halo and almost x-raying your body and trying to put every single facet of yourself into a state of zen to relax into sleep. I realized in the first week that this is really difficult for me to do because I don't keep my phone next to my bed, and then in order to access the meditation I had to put my phone next to my bed, and it really messed up my sleep. And even when I was able to achieve the state of zen after the exercise, I then had to get back out of bed to plug my phone into the charger, and it was frustrating. And what happened in the second week is someone in class told me, hey, why don't you connect your phone to a speaker and then you can just turn off the speaker and go straight to sleep. And I ended up doing that for the second week, which was really beneficial. And I noticed now the exercise is really working for me, and this is very incredibly relaxing. I'm able to go to sleep so much faster, but there was still, especially after stressful days, a few too many thoughts in my head. And even though I was so aware of my body and my body felt incredibly relaxed, my mind was still going. And what I then changed in the third week was to give myself moments, while I'm still doing this mindfulness exercise of the autogenesis meditation, throughout the week I was giving myself moments of boredom. And so I combined the 6-minute mindfulness meditation to a kind of mindfulness exercise that was not necessarily meditative in terms of guided meditation, but quiet meditation of sitting on my terrace 5 minutes a day, depending on the weather, and just letting myself be bored, not doing anything. And initially I did it with a timer. I realized that this timer is putting a bit of pressure on myself, and it took me out of this kind of state of letting my mind just wander wherever I wanted it to be. I wasn't focusing on my breathing because I do that in different moments of my day and different moments of my life. I wanted this to really just be, let my mind be bored, to see how does the autogenesis feel at the end of the day. And I realized when I take however long I need to be bored throughout the day, that the mindfulness exercise, where I'm really focusing on relaxing my body and regulating my nervous system in that way, is incredibly helpful. And connecting the two was the way for me to achieve the best sleep. Because life is made up of constant new experiences that constantly trigger a gut feeling, which is the thing that is connected to our core belief, which Andrea Hess mentions, this kind of intuitive blind spot that we have. That is why I believe mindfulness is so incredibly important, because it is the tool that leads us to accessing our intuitive intelligence, to having this holistic form of intelligence, as Francis Collet believes intuitive intelligence is. which I do too, absolutely. And the thing that I want to get to now in my intuitive intelligence and mindfulness journey is a kind of more leadership approach, and really taking the dialogue experience that we had in class, which I was very, very and shocked by, actually, by my reaction towards it, which initially was quite averse and which felt very unnatural to me, because I do like responding to my peers and my friends in very emotive ways, which I then suddenly was restricting myself in doing. And I realized afterwards how essential it is actually to be so attentive to what other people are saying and so in control over what your reactions are, which is leading to way more intuitive responses in the end, because you're accessing this kind of heart center much more and going much more vertically than you are going horizontally. This is again where Anouk Brack comes into play, where I believe that this leadership theory, this leadership embodiment, is the thing that I want to take forward in my intuitive intelligence and mindfulness journey. Specifically catering my mindfulness practices to this way more, I think, intentional and way more questioning type of meditation and type of mindfulness, because I know that I practice boredom and I practice nervous system regulation in my day-to-day life quite naturally because of the therapy that I'm in. But now I really want to go forth and accessing this intuitive intelligence that they propose, which is this vertical form of intuitive intelligence. I know that I'm quite at the horizontal, especially when it comes to control, not so much approval or safety, but I do also find that the control gives me a lot of safety. And through the control, I can also access a lot of approval. So I do see that they're aligned, but I know that for me, I do have much more issues with letting go of this control and letting go of it in a way that shows me that I can actually use my intuition and I can use the intelligence that I have to create this sense of clarity. And that is why I would really like to carry forth with the kind of practices that they propose, asking ourselves a little bit more of a question, sitting down in a more intentional way. I do journal, but I find myself journaling in situations and about things that happen to me where my gut feeling and my core belief and my intuitive blind spot is much more attached to that than my actual intuition. And I would like to transform this practice into a practice that is also based on my intuitive intelligence rather than just my immediate core beliefs.